this is where it goes down. Where you hear about the sports all around town. In the country, full of controversy to the highlights. You just not safe in the limelight.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the Stoop. It's your man TJ, got my guy Kev down there. What's up, Kev?
What's going on?
All right, listen, we live today with a very special guest. And Kev, I'm gonna let you get the pleasure of doing this one for today, man. I'm gonna just fall back, like I already said, bro. Go ahead.
Man, I hope I can do my man some justice with this intro, but we have a very special guest in the building today. He's part of a Grammy Award-winning ensemble. He's a remarkable musician in his own right, recently releasing his own album. I got that right here.
Okay.
My man.
Out there. Eclectic Excursions. Go ahead and go cop that. Sports Guru. You may have seen him on ESPN, Stumping the Schwab. You might have seen him on Sports Jeopardy, Sirius XM. He's currently his own host of his own podcast, Where They At. But before all that, he's a very good friend of mine. Listen to Nabaté Isles.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate y'all blessings.
I hope I did you justice with that one, man.
Yes, you did. That's the greatest intro I've had in my life, man, for sure. Absolutely.
That's what's up.
Yes, sir.
So, let's get cooking. Let's get right to this today. Let's not waste any time. One of the things we wanted to talk about, I saved this topic specifically for you because I wanted some of your insight on this. We're talking about the status of the big man in the game today. What are your thoughts on that? What are your takes on the decline of the traditional big man? TJ, hit me on first.
So when I originally looked at this, there's a piece going. I think ESPN did the piece. Ramona Shelburne, I think, was who did the interviews. She got some of the most game-defining, redefining big men of the 90s era. She spoke to David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Akeem Olajuwon. And right now, as we stay in the game, the traditional back you down on the block position number 5, the center, no longer exists as we know it. And what stuck out to me is that growing up in the 90s era, where there was some formidable duos, but you also had that dominant big man. And if you look at the 90s, other than Michael and Scotty, the other championships that were won by a dominant big man in Hakeem Olajuwon in that back-to-back Clutch City series. But other than that, the other dominant big man that existed in the era, once again, Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and then we see in the latter parts of the mid-90s was the resurgence of the Dikembes, the Alonzo Mournings, and of course Shaquille O'Neal, and which is something that I really want to touch on, and I've been wanting to touch on, but having such a great guru on set today is something I want to really get his take on. And I got a special question I got for him later on, but I want to ask the question is, what happened to the decline in the big man? Where do you see it, and why is it where it is in the game today?
Well, there's a lot of factors. It's interesting. I think European style basketball, because it's kind of like you have now a lot of, I think, and it kind of somewhat started with Ralph Sampson. Ralph, when he got to the league, because he had to play power forward to Hakeem center when they were the Twin Towers in the mid '80s, and Ralph was starting to take the game a little bit to the outside, start to create off the dribble at 7'4". But of course he wasn't shooting threes because 3-point shot wasn't really prevalent until like the early 90s. That's when you started to see more 3-point shots. But I think Ralph Sampson had a little bit to do with it, but also the European influx, like Arvydas Sabonis. Remember Arvydas Sabonis, when he wasn't in his prime, because we didn't get to see him in his prime, unfortunately. Imagine like pretty much what Kristaps Porzingis and Jokic are, that's what Arvydas Sabonis was in his day, in his prime, when he was in Europe. But he didn't get to come to the NBA. He was part of the Soviets, So, but I think a lot with the European big man coming in, like you had like a lot more outside shooting and everything. And then like a lot of players, like when coming up in the AAU, a lot of the players, the 6'10", the 6'11's KG, you notice he started to pop from the outside. He started to create off the dribble with his handle. He had Chris Webber as well, doing like the mid-range game and everything like that. And then it evolved with big men starting to take it out, and a lot had a lot to do with the European game, because a lot of cats want to, you know, do the dribbling and everything, and be able to do and not really bang inside anymore, like the Kevin Willises, like, and those dudes, and the Otis Stoops and the Oakleys, those cats, they didn't want to be in with those guys, you know.
And most of those cats, those last two you named, they all played the four, but they also had, so if you talk about Terry Cummings, you talk about Oak, they had solid fours, because Terry Cummings was the four to David Robinson, and Oak was the four to Patrick Ewing. Oak played the four to Akeem Olajuwon, so they all had solid fives with that four.
Right, exactly. So I think a lot of the European, and it was funny on my podcast talking with Jerry Colangelo, he said that like a lot European based, and also a lot of the big men don't, you know, and also it's funny, maybe it could be a sociological thing too, where a lot of people don't want to get, you know, the tough get going. People don't want to get in that heat, you know, get inside and really bang inside. Like really one of the last, like Shaq and Mourning are like the last cats when you think about of the center position that you mentioned that really engage in physical activity inside. So but yeah, that's what's going on. And 3-point shooting is like, you know, you have teams shooting more threes than twos now. So
Shaq made a good point on Inside the NBA a couple weeks ago, and he said that his game could still transcend to this era today. I want to get both of y'all's take on that. And not only that, but also looking back in that glorious 90s run where we had some dominant big men. Do you see anybody, could Shaq's game translate today? And if not him, who else do you think may be able to play and get dominant minutes in scoring in today's era of basketball?
Well, I think right now we still do have some traditional big men, but most of them, for the most part, are what I would consider more so the role players. You got Tristan Thompson, JaVale McGee. A lot of those guys are still around, but they're not looked at as the first option or anything on most of these teams. The only guys that I can see that kind of sort of can do it, and I don't even know if I would label them a traditional big guy anyway, would be somebody along the lines of like Zion or maybe DeMarcus Cousins. But that's about it as far as we go with the traditional big guys. But even they're taking three-pointers and moving outside. But what I find funny is when you look at the analytics of everything, and they're actually being told that posting up to the back with your back to the basket is a low percentage shot, which is crazy to me. Like they think that by tossing the ball back out and looking for the threes, that you're much better useful in the NBA today, which just seems bass backwards to me, if you ask me. But I wanted to get your take on that because that just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. The big man down low just seems like a better, higher percentage shot, in my opinion.
Could Shaq rock in today's era, Kev? Get your take on that.
Shaq, yeah. Well, first of all, he's an anomaly as well with his size, so he's going to play well in virtually any era because there's not much you can do with a body that size. But you have somebody somewhat like Giannis, even though he's taking a lot more three-pointers these days. There's a guy right there that spends the majority of his time in the paint getting baskets. So if he can do it, I can't see why Shaq, particularly in his earlier years, wouldn't be able to do the same.
Yeah, I think Shaq will really, because of his size, you know. But you would have to have a coach like in Mike D'Antoni's system. Nah, he wouldn't. You know, you wouldn't feed him the ball as much. You know, like because you had Clint Capella, who's obviously not as big as Shaq, but very similar game, rolls to the rim and defends. Also, Shaq would have to defend more. He would have to be more of a rim protector, which he was.
Orlando Shaq.
Orlando Shaq was. Yeah, Lakers Shaq wasn't. He didn't have the conditioning to do both sides. So that was the problem. That's why you usually had a four that was good. That was a good defender, a la Horace Grant. That would take a lot of the difficult post matchups and everything. So, but another thing too, Rudy Gobert. He rose to the rim. He goes to the rim with authority and everything like that. So I think Shaq would be that type of player. But you notice when we talk about Rudy Gobert, defender, Clint Capella, defender. So that's what Shaq he would have to focus more on defense if he played into this game.
I got it. In terms of the 90s era, if I give you the top four based upon what Ranker.com put together, they gave us Akeem being number one. They're talking about overall proficiency, scoring, winning percentage, and wins in that era in the 90s. So Akeem was number one. David Robinson was number two. And these are all players that played from 1990 until 99.
Right.
Akeem, David Robinson is number two. Shaq is number three. Patrick Ewing was number four. Dikembe was five. I'm just going top 10, excuse me. 6 was Alonzo Mourning. Number 7 was Tim Duncan. Number 8 is Arvydas Sabonis. Number 9 is Vlade Divac. And number 10, which I didn't even think still made any sense, but he did in the early 90s with Atlanta, was Moses Malone.
Yeah.
So then, and which is crazy, number 11, anybody want to give a guess who number 11 is?
Ooh, Rich Schmitz, maybe?
1990 to 99?
Maybe Rick Schmitz?
You got me stumped. Who you got?
Schmitz is number 12. Number 11 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Mr. Brad Daugherty.
Oh, yeah, and his career ended early. Yep.
That's the problem.
Yep.
So those top 4.
And you notice Duncan, you said Duncan, he only played 2 years.
In the
97 and 99.
with your championship years, and the proficiency and the winning percentage was higher than cats who played 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years more than he did.
Exactly.
Still, these top 4 always stuck out to me: Akeem, David Robinson, Shaq, and Patrick Ewing.
That's right.
In the piece that they did on ESPN, David Robinson and Patrick Ewing said, we knew when Shaq came in the league, our days were numbered. And the reason why Patrick said it was, Patrick said, my game wasn't banging. I took 2, 3 dribbles, I spun, or I popped my shot. When Shaq came to us with his chest and his body, we never felt any type of physical domination like that.
Yeah.
So the question that I have to you guys is, Shaq was definitely an anomaly, but I also look at Patrick and David Robinson and even Akeem as being an anomaly as well. I think if we look at all 4, what was the difference with them? And I also want to take this back to another guy that people really don't consider a lot, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know, Kareem's move was the most versatile move in league history. Nobody could defend the sky hook. Out of all those, and we'll take Shaq out of the equation, who had the best move? Akeem, David, Patrick, unstoppable? Who was the best in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, especially if we're talking about footwork, Olajuwon's in the class by himself. To the point that we have guys that are playing now still going to him, looking for guidance and how to make moves. And in my opinion, Joel Embiid needs to speak with him a little bit more, but that's another story. But so if we're talking about footwork and moves, I mean, all you got to do is go back and look at some of the highlights. He made David Robinson, one of the best defenders of all time, look crazy hopping up and down. So, you know, he's got to be number 1 on my list. But Nabaté, how you feel about that?
I think so too, Hakeem Olajuwon to me. I think Shaq, when you rank all time, you have to give Shaq more credit because he has the 4 rings, and also he's had, you know, he revolutionized the game with his dominance, you know. But Hakeem Olajuwon was the better player, one-on-one. He was the better player. And Hakeem was, you know, him and Bill Russell are the greatest defensive big men in the history of the league. You know, and Tim Duncan. Those are the 3 greatest defensive big men in the league. And Hakeem could do anything. He can guard 3. He could guard 3 positions. He could guard the 3s, 4s, and 5s. You know, he was. I mean, there was a couple seasons he had averaged 2 steals and like 4 blocks a game.
But
had a quadruple double, everything, you know, like, so Hakeem was so versatile and had a nice touch from mid range, which Shaq never had. Dave Robinson had that, but Ewing had that, but Hakeem was more creative in getting off those shots.
Hey, Nabaté, I want to ask you a question, knowing your prowess about the game and thinking about things. And I hear what y'all saying about Hakeem, but y'all got to think back, especially mid-90s. I'm talking about from 93 to 96, that jab step up with Patrick, like Patrick's jab, and he would hit you with the shot, was unstoppable. You got to remember, Marv, I was that Ewing, yes. Like,
yes.
Come on, y'all. I got to really give – I think people don't really give Patrick his respect, and I'm a little biased because of what I do now, but I also got to realize, like, Patrick was formidable. Think about it. He's a finger roll away from a title. So can we not – or do we really not so much underrated, but do we overshadow Patrick because he was in the same era of Hakeem? The Dream Shake is crazy. Nobody's stopping that. But I also think we don't give Patrick enough of his due with his jab step and his shot, and also being just strong going to the basket and backing down.
And before I'll let you add to that, Kevin. You're right. I think Ewan, I give him a lot of credit because he never had a number 2 option on the team. He never had an all-star caliber number 2 option. And Hakeem was the same. Hakeem was the same too until he got Drexler, but Hakeem already had a title beating Patrick. Before. But no, Patrick though, the knee problems early in his career kind of robbed him of the athleticism that Robinson and Hakeem had, and Shaq, of course, had athleticism and strength. But I think that's what robbed Patrick from him really being explosive. But he was so crafty, and he's underrated. He is underrated for sure because you look at it like he carried that team, and the East was more prevalent when you had the Bulls, the Pistons, the Celtics early 90s. The Celtics was still there, but the Bulls and Pistons, those were the teams, and then you had the Heat too. And so a lot of competition in the East. And so Patrick, a lot of props. I see what you're saying, TJ.
Kev, what you thinking?
I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, aside from not having another All-Star, he's probably one of the top 50 players that has never even had another Hall of Famer alongside him at any given point in his career. So Patrick Ewing by far is underrated. I don't think many people would disagree with that.
Nabaté, we did something earlier on one of our segments on our shows. Kevin and I talk about the best 1-2 punches, the best combos. But we want to get your intake while we got you live on our show today. And I want to put it back to because you just made a great point with Patrick never having a great all-star around him. Not until his latter years, they brought on Allen Houston and Latrell and those guys. But his window was definitely closing at that point in his career. But in your take over the years, and if you want to rank them, top 3, top 5, what were the best combos of big man and maybe a guard or 4 or 3 or 4 that are pretty much prevalent in your mind today that sticks out?
Ooh. Well, okay. Well, I have to think about the order. But I mean, of course, of course, Shaq and Kobe, of course, Shaq and Penny too. When Penny was, imagine if they were together, and I think Orlando messed that up with not, giving Shaq the respect to pay him, because Shaq would have stayed there. He loved Orlando. He would have stayed there, but they didn't give him the respect, and Jerry West came in and swooped him because Jerry West is real as they get. He's a real dude. You shake his hand, he's integrity, So that's when they Shaq go to LA. But Shaq and Penny, I would say too some underrated. Lou Alcindor and Oscar.
There you go.
Too. Even though Oscar was fading, Lou Alcindor was, and him were still like a great combination too.
What's that? 67, 68.
68 was when Kareem was drafted. So so 68 to 72 because Oscar, Oscar retired in 72. Also too, Rustin and Kevin Durant. Even though Kevin Durant's supposed to be he's 7 feet, 6'11", but still that was a great combination. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. It's unfortunate that they just. And I remember Kevin and I were talking about their relationship when we were talking, before the show about them. Also, an underrated duo like George Gervin and Larry Keenan. People don't talk about them under Doug Moe in the late 70s with the Spurs. Like Larry Keenan.
That's ABA love.
And then their early NBA years, late 70s and 80s. Like those cats, beautiful combination there. And I'm trying to think other big. Who could have been? Mourning and Johnson would have been special. LJ and Alonzo Mourning. But that was a whole ego thing, and they totally didn't get along. So that duo could have been at the time great in Charlotte, because they were building something, but then, of course, it didn't work out.
Yeah, that I don't know if they had a special on that about that Charlotte team and that whole Buzz City thing, and that could have been really magical and really memorable. And it's unfortunate that didn't grow wings or get enough shelf life because I think you had two of the most dominant, young, hungry, ferocious players. I'll be honest with you. Until LJ and his back, LJ was just ferocious. I mean, like, he's in the dunk contest. Like, y'all got to remember, Grandmama was so formidable with his power and athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
He could just play the game. He had
couldn't
an
do
old
anything
school.
with him.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Yeah.
He was so strong, and he was powerful. If I talk about this one, GP and the Rain Man, what you think about that one?
Yeah, man. I mean, the Rain Man, and it's kind of funny. The Rain Man wouldn't work in today's game. He'll be more like.
Speak on that. Speak on that. Let me hear that one.
It's very interesting because Rain Man had no perimeter game. Rain Man just got inside, and that's why Rain Man is not really heralded as, his athleticism is what it is. He had great post moves, great skill set with his post moves, but he never developed the outside shot for him to be Hall of Fame level type of player. He never developed that, and that was the only downside with Rain Man, but him and GP, oh man, the connection they had, for that era of basketball, they were amazing. In Seattle, they just fell short, man. 96, they were almost there, but fell short. So
I want to talk about something too as well. I'm sorry, Kevin, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Stockton and Malone too. Forgot about them. Stockton and Malone. So
there was one part of the list that I looked at, and it says some of the most underrated or untalked about centers in league history. And I want to run down there's 10, but I want to run down 5.
Okay.
Keep these names in mind. And we can talk about them. The reason why I think they got these guys up: Bill Cartwright, Darryl Dawkins, Sam Perkins, Robert Parrish, and Manute Bol. The reason why they're in this article, and there's little snippets about all of them, I'll just briefly go about those. Bill Cartwright was in this article as an unheralded big man because the part that he played in the first part of the triangle. Darryl Dawkins, about his athleticism and power, not really talked about, but other than taking down the rims. But at that time, he was a man-child coming into the league.
Yeah.
Sam Perkins, to play both 4 and 5, had a lot of athleticism and a pure jump shot. Robert Parrish.
Brooklyn, too. Sam Perkins.
Yeah. Robert Parrish was talked about because, he played a lesser role, but the Celtics would have never won without him, as strong as he was, dominant, rim protecting, and rebounding. And last but not least, they said Manute Bol because he brought a lot of people out because you had to respect his jump shot. And you think about it, Manute would hit 2 or 3 a game and open up the rest of the floor. And he was a shot blocker, unbeknownst at that time, being so long. So if any of y'all want to just jump into those and speak about any of those at this time, but I thought those 5 were just really, really interesting, especially looking at Bill Cartwright, because you know what? Bill Cartwright is really the unsung hero of that first Bulls 3-peat as a big man.
Absolutely. Bill Cartwright was unsung. He's not going to put up, especially when he was playing alongside Jordan, but prior to that, he actually did his own thing, putting up numbers. But Bill Cartwright is definitely a unsung hero in Chicago. That triangle offense and some of his unspoken leadership on that team. So I would definitely say he's underrated. I'm not sure. I'd put him top 5. And they said they had him at number 2?
Yeah, 2 in the top as unsung hero, unsung centers in league history. They got him. I mean, he won 3 championships.
Obviously, he won 3 championships, and he was a significant part of it. Mike and Pip obviously are the names that stand out. But he played his role in that as well. But I don't know if I'd give him top 5. But he definitely had better years prior to that run. But top 5 all time, I don't know. What do you think about that?
He was serviceable prior to Patrick getting to New York in that trade with Oak and everything else. So it wasn't like Bill Cartwright wasn't playing, or even his years, I think, in Seattle as well. So, Bill Cartwright could play, but I mean, they got him as number 2 as the second top unsung center in NBA history.
Yeah. Like Bill Cartwright with the Knicks, his first 3 years with them, 2 or 3 seasons with the Knicks, he was incredible.
He was better then.
Yeah, he was really he carried that team. He was, rookie of the year. I'm sorry, all rookie that year. I wonder who won. Oh, Magic. Magic probably was rookie of the year. That was 79-80. He was in that draft with Magic Johnson.
And he won that chip.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Bill Cartwright, no, definitely very crafty inside. Very, very efficient, and he had some injury problems here and there. But then what I liked was that he was really a mentor for Patrick. He wasn't selfish. That was the thing about him. Like, he was a mentor for Patrick, really appreciated Patrick and helped Patrick along the way. And then one of the great trades in NBA history, unsung trades, is Cartwright for Oakley. How both teams were helped out with that trade, because Oakley became one of the quintessential Knicks, you know, and then Cartwright helped the Bulls with 3 titles. And what I like, Kevin and I talked about this, it was kind of funny about Cartwright. He didn't back down from Jordan at all. You know, like he was the guy that did, like, he and Jordan would go at it. But let me tell you, it told Jordan that he wasn't going to get away with intimidating someone, whatever. And Jordan saw that Cartwright was just as competitive, you know, and everything. And it showed with Cartwright winning those rings. And then he was one of the few centers to be a head coach in the NBA. Very cerebral guy. You know, because of course we can talk about the lack of centers that coach in the league. You know, like we talk about that because you notice most of the head coaches are guards, basically. So were guards. So Bill
Cartwright in that second set of three-peats, you know, he was actually an assistant on the bench. And actually when Parrish moved over, when the Chief came to Chicago, because Chief was on the roster at that time, you know.
Yeah, for the 96 team.
Yeah, he didn't see time. He seen a little time, I guess, but he was actually on the bench as well. But, you know, Cartwright moved into a coaching role.
The second three-peat, if I'm not mistaken, Cartwright, I don't think he was with the Bulls at that particular time. For the second set?
He became assistant coach.
Assistant coach.
Oh, assistant coach.
Yeah, under Phil. Yeah, under Phil. Yep.
Job, yes. You're absolutely right. That's a great point, that you don't see a lot of center and big man dominant coaches that exist in the reins of the NBA coaching fraternity at this time. And quick question, why do you think that exists? Because there were some real good, and there's some great big men right now. Because think about it. One of the unsung, head office guys right now, and Alonzo Mourning was a dominant big man, and he's amazing right now as one of the top guys for Riley in the Orlando system.
Front office. The front office. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy, I think. You know, and McHale was, you know, very good head coach, you know. It's weird, I guess, because they see point guards, they're the floor generals, they're the floor leaders. So that's why a point guard would get more of an opportunity to coach. And centers, I don't know why that is, because Patrick Ewing, for example, never got an opportunity to be an NBA head coach. Just give him an opportunity. If he was 19-63 one season, then okay, he got his opportunity. But I just don't understand why, because when you look at centers back in the day, they were like the safeties of defense. They would see everything, and they would let people know. That's what made Bill Russell legendary, because he would let everyone know in front of him, you know. And Rudy Gobert is like that too. Like, he would be guiding everyone, you know, like defensively. That's why he's such a monster defensive player. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know why. I can't pinpoint it, but I guess they go more with point guards because they're floor generals. But it's just getting the opportunity when you could get. You get in, you can fit in.
The game has just changed that much, where it used to be inside out or outside in. I'm sorry, and now with so much on the perimeter that as you said, the center used to be like the general that would run things, and the game has changed so much that isn't a factor anymore. Where you have these guys that the centers are out taking 3-pointers just as much as everybody else, which brings us back to our original point in the whole conversation. The decline of the big man, and I guess it's not only taking place on the floor, but it's having an effect in the office as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, but that bringing that back full circle to the big man and the change. One of the names that come to mind, obviously, that most people probably think about is Dirk. He was probably we spoke about Sam Perkins, of course, and we also had Manute Bol that shot threes and so on and so forth. We had some other guys that did it as well. But somebody that essentially made a living doing it as a big man is Dirk Nowitzki. And my question to you guys is, how much credit does he get for what we currently see happening to the big guy?
He gets a lot of credit, you know, for sure, because with his fadeaway, that fadeaway shot, is just, that's unstoppable right there at 7 feet and having the reach to shoot right over you. And also to be able to create off the dribble. And the thing was that he's not that quick, but he knows how to get to his spots. That's an influence right there, where you don't have to be quick or you don't have to be fast. Like, you just know where your spots are. And that takes practice. That takes a lot of preparation in your development. And, like, you know, taking the time in the gym, knowing like, okay, right here, top of the key, just go left real quick and I can find my shot. And he had the reach to be able to shoot right over, you know, Nowitzki, for sure. Like, great player from that standpoint. And the European, once again, the European big man, like that's how he's influenced that style. And he's influenced not just Europeans, but influenced American players as well. Everyone has respect and love for Dirk Nowitzki.
Hey, fellas, I know we have a couple more minutes on our session to wrap up. We have about five and a half minutes left. I want to pose this question to you before we wrap some things up. If you had to start an NBA franchise today, but you can use any era and select 2 big men, maybe your first unit and your second unit, who would be your 2 and why? Kev, you can go first.
My 2 big men? I'm going to start with Olajuwon, and I'm going to go with Bill Russell.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory right there. I mean, you have probably the greatest champion, well, undoubtedly the greatest NBA champion that we have. The man's got 11, and everything that he could do with the ball as well as defensively. And then we bring it a little bit more current with somebody like Olajuwon with the footwork and the jump shot, and he's also a defensive juggernaut as well. So if I'm going with two big men, classic big men, I'm going with those 2. Nabaté?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with this. You know, I'm not the greatest fan of one of the guys I'm gonna mention from the stand, but he's dominant. It's Shaquille O'Neal. I would go with Shaq, but then I would go with KG to be next to him.
Ooh.
Because the reason why KG is so unselfish, and KG will do all the dirty work and all the things, the rebounding, the defense, and KG is very underrated too. I think people talk, and I give Dirk Nowitzki a lot of credit, but I think KG is the better player in my opinion. I've always thought that, you know, and KG could do everything, and he can pop and take the 18, 19 footer at will, you know, and that makes it so easy to be able to spread it with Shaq being able to get the ball inside. But then KG could be able to be whoever the post guy is. Shaq could kind of stay idle, and KG could be able to guard. KG could guard also 3 to 4 positions too.
True.
That I think from the standpoint of chemistry and synergy, Shaq and KG would have been, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And that.
Let me jump in.
I want to steal yours and go with that too, because that was pretty damn good.
My God. Yes, sir.
let me spin this one too. It's one of the things I thought about earlier when I was taking my notes down. For whatever reason it is, in NBA lore, when we're talking about, you know, just going on these debates and talking about big man positions, whether it's guards, forward, small forward, power forward, and centers, 2 guys that you never really readily hear about in conversation. And maybe because they're lost in the early 2000s, but they were prolific in their own right in their time capsule and their windows. The first gentleman, Orlando Magic, Dwight Howard, and I also thinking about Ben Wallace. If I tell you, in your personal view, why don't you think those 2 guys are very much mentioned? We know Dwight has had his stories and injuries and things of that nature, but Orlando Magic, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA championship, Dwight Howard was prevalent, especially with a dominant guard like Jameer Nelson was in his heyday. And also Big Ben. Big Ben is really never, ever talked about, but we're talking about a multiple-time defensive title winner, defensive champion, like great guys. Just give your insight on that. And we're talking about NBA big men real quick.
Yeah, great question. I think the very limited offensively.
Okay.
Yeah, very limited. I mean, Ben Wallace had no type of offense, and Ben Wallace was able to be great in focusing on his role because he was a role player, but an extraordinary role player, you know, knew his role well. And when you have like, you know, offensive guys like, you know, skilled guys like Rashid and skilled guys like Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups right there, all Ben had to do was play defense, you know, basically, and never had any type of offensive game. But Dwight Howard disappoints me because it's so funny. He's one of those players, right, Kevin? Like there's some athletes, and this would be a great show too, great topic, of players that are still Hall of Fame worthy, but didn't fulfill their potential. Could have been on the pantheon with Wilt and with Russell. Could have been up there, but didn't. But still Hall of Famers. Like, it's kind of like you strive for excellence to achieve mediocrity. And Howard didn't strive for excellence because he should have been better than Pat. Should have been better than D-Rob. Admiral should have been better than Hakeem. And Dwight just didn't do that. So they were limited offensively. That's why they don't get the credit. But defensively, amazing. And, that's why.
We got about 45 seconds left, man. And we really want to thank you for joining us on the episode of The Stoop, bro.
Pleasure.
An opportunity to jump on with you again. But real quick, man, share how everybody they can want to get in touch with you and speak to you, man. Share all your contact information for us, brother.
Appreciate you, my brother. Yes, now I have my show, Where They At. So it's WHE''RE, They At. And it's a show that features retired athletes, Hall of Fame caliber athletes. I have 14 episodes, 13 title episodes, but 14 total shows on there. So you can go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, not Amazon, but Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all those places to check it out. So Where They At is the podcast. At NSI.Universal is my Instagram, my Twitter, NABATEISLES SMTA. It's my Twitter, Nabaté Isles SMTA.
Wonderful. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man.
Be safe. Pleasure, my man.
Thank you both. Pleasure to rap with y'all.
Absolutely. Peace and blessings to everybody. Thank y'all so much, good brothers. And ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for another great episode of The Stoop. Until then, it's my guy, Kev. And we'll catch you real soon. Take care, man. Thanks.
Some say that it gets no real on the field or the court. We capture the thrillers. Some opinions and all of the truth. Real people talking real sports on The Stoop.